Now, let me just say a couple of introductory things. First of all, I'm really pleased to be here, not just in Vermont, but here at this conference. I'm pleased to claim to be an alum of the University of Vermont and very happy with the direction the university has chosen to take with this particular area of endeavor. President Sullivan, it's great to have you on board. It's wonderful for me as an alum, as the Secretary of Agriculture, Food and Markets, to hear you speak the way you did today, and to assemble and support the kind of leadership team you have here at the university. I'm going to make 3 points today. The 3 points I want to make are informed by my experience as a farmer, my travels as a farmer, as a legislator, as your Secretary of Agriculture, Food and Markets, both in Vermont, the United States, and around the world. And also informed by my enormous frustration with what I'm watching in Congress not happen. And let me say, it's not because of our congressional delegation. Now, like any good speaker and any good consumer, I went to the market before I came here today. So I want to ask you, how many of you have eaten one of these? Vermont apple, excellent. How many of you have eaten one of these? A Florida orange, very good. How many of you eaten some part of this? One of the most ubiquitous crops out there, I might add. And this, did everybody see that? That would be a kiwi. And if I had a prop big enough, I'd do this, and that would be a soybean. Thank you for supporting local agriculture with a Vermont apple. Thank you for supporting Floridian agriculture with the orange, Iowa agriculture with the corn, and the New Zealanders who always need our help with the kiwi. These are products from our agriculture and food system, the food system that's composed of a number of systems: the organic system, the conventional system, the local system, not to mention the biodynamic system, the natural system, and the wild system, all of which we harvest food from to eat and consume. So, I ask you, which one of those systems do you think is the best? Do we want to have a show of hands? Organic. Conventional. Local. Biodynamic. Natural. Wild. So, you've thought about that. I want you to hold that thought. Hold that thought. Which one of those is the best system? But let me broaden the context for your evaluation. The biggest challenge facing our world in the 21st century is an ecological challenge. It's typified by climate change. Climate change is not alone. We are stressing our oceans, we're losing our soil, we're deforesting our world, to mention a few. And by 2050, there are going to be 9 billion of us, plus 2 billion more than today, and we're going to have to find a way to feed all those people. So, given that challenge, can we, in the agriculture and food system arena, afford to have the food fight we're having? Region versus region, organic versus local, conventional versus organic, GMO versus non-GMO. Can we afford to have that fight, looking at what we're looking at down the barrel of the 21st century? Or should we learn from each other and adopt a different approach that recognizes there are comparative advantages which is why Florida is a better place to raise an orange than Vermont. Should we find a way to work together rather than fight with one another? Should we find a way to take the best out of each one of those systems and move forward? I submit to you that we're going to need everybody at the food table working and learning together, not fighting. That's point number one. Point number two. In the U.S., 100% of us, get this, 100% of us eat. Right? Everybody had a meal today or something? So 100% of us eat, 2% of us are engaged in raising that food. That means 98% of us aren't very involved. And in fact, we've spent generations distancing ourselves, us 98%, distancing ourselves from our agriculture and food systems. So how are we going to get out of this box canyon of the 21st century with those ecological challenges and a growing population if we don't get smarter about our agriculture and food systems, if we don't work together in those systems? I submit to you, agricultural literacy is going to be critical moving forward. And let me define that. That is the ability to think critically about our agriculture and food systems. It is to understand the interconnectivity of our food, our farming, our economic and ecological systems, appreciate the complexity of our agriculture and food systems, and understand the importance of making informed decisions which shape our economy, influence our ecology, and make our communities what they are. If we're going to make good decisions, more of us are going to need to know that manure is not a pollutant, but actually a nutrient and a resource that we all depend upon and need to figure out how to utilize better. We're going to need to know that our children know which end of a chicken an egg comes out of. That they actually have an appreciation for what it means to put a steak on the table. Where a glass of milk actually comes from. And how and what's involved in putting soy in your tofu. Point number 3. I submit to you, and I believe strongly, which is why I'm so excited and feel like I have a wonderful opportunity being the Vermont Secretary of Agriculture, that Vermont is actually building a model that's going to help educate that other 98% of the population that has distanced themselves from our food and agricultural systems, who have lost their understanding at the level we need them to understand in order to move forward. The people that we typically find in the suburban, urban, and exurban areas of our country, many of the people represented by the vote in Congress for food stamps, but led to a farm bill not passing. And not to suggest they're the only votes to blame there, mind you. A model where we are having farmers learning how to produce, live, and participate in the very communities of those urban, suburban, exurban, rural fringe communities, where the people are. The 98% are, the people who have lost their connection to agriculture. We in the state of Vermont, the #1 state in the country on a per capita basis in terms of direct marketing, where there's direct contact between the farmer and the consumer. We're figuring out how to build a system where we can have that interface, where we are figuring out how those consumers can support us as farmers. And in the process, we can help educate that 98%. We learn what their needs are and respond by virtue of what we produce. We learn new ways from engaging not only them but one another in the food and agricultural systems. And they learn to trust us. Trust us to eat the food that we produce. And in the process, that interaction, that economy, that responsiveness to the very ecology of those communities in which they live and work, those farmers, those people in the food systems are building better, healthier communities, ones that we love to live, work, and raise a family in, which is what I think we do so enormously well in Vermont. Those people, they're going to become our partners through this model of closer engagement and interface between the 98% and some of us who are the 2%. And figuring out how we're going to live within an ecological and economic and community means of the world in which we live. So let me conclude by asking you this. Let me invite you over the course of this afternoon and in future endeavors to listen for the opportunity to learn from somebody else who thinks a little differently, farms a little differently, and does things a little differently than you. Let me invite you to look for opportunities to work together rather than dispute. And let me invite you to support the evolution of Vermont's food model, but the evolution of our collective agriculture and food system so that it is going to be able to meet the call to feed this world and do so and make its contribution to doing so within the ecological means of the community in which we live, which starts here at home and includes the rest of the world. Thank you very much.